Natasha, how are you?
Hi, Maya. Good. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. It's always nice to see you. I know you really well. And before we start talking about you, I just want to say a few things that you are honestly one of the first and few senior lawyers in Ottawa who really helped me when, I was still new. I didn't know what I was doing, and you offered me so much mentorship. You offered me a space. You really offered me support and gave me a lot of confidence in myself. I admire you a lot, and I will forever be grateful for everything that you did. And I think that you're an amazing person. I'm obviously biased because I know how kind you are and how funny, and you're an awesome lawyer. You fight really hard for your clients, and you're not afraid of taking on challenging cases and controversial clients that we're going to be talking about. But before we get into what you do, Natasha, I just want you to introduce yourself to our listeners.
Perfect. Good morning, or I guess good afternoon now. Thanks for the really kind words, Maya. I miss having you around the office. COVID hit, and then you had obligations that took you back to family in
Yeah.
Montreal, and you're not really here full time anymore. But if you ever want to come back, we always have space for you.
Yeah.
So yeah, my name is Natasha Calvinho. I'm a criminal defense lawyer who practices predominantly in Ottawa, but I take cases across Eastern Ontario and out of province where the case calls me. We were just asking where I went to law school. I went to law school at the University of Toronto. I was there from 1999 until 2002. And then I moved back to Ottawa to write my bars, do my articles, and then set up practice as a criminal defense attorney. So I've been practicing almost exclusively in criminal defense since about 2003. I did a bit of civil in the beginning, wasn't for me. And so I've been practicing almost exclusively criminal since then. I've been blessed. I had a lot of good mentors along the way, and I've been able to be exposed to a lot of very serious and complicated cases. While I don't really turn away a lot of work, um, I do prefer the long, complicated, complex, those types of litigation where I really get my teeth into them and get into it and do that kind of work. I now live in Ottawa, but like I said, I travel around Eastern Ontario wherever the cases kind of take me. I'm a mom and I'm a partner, and yeah, that's about it. That's me.
Well, that's a lot though. And so speaking about the cases that you do take, because you did mention that you like to take these complex cases, and I mean that's what having been with you in your office, I know that you're doing trials almost every single day. So you're,
Yeah.
like a full-time trial lawyer, always fighting for your clients, and you take on these very complicated cases, and sometimes cases that many other lawyers would not want to take, either because the defenses are very weak or because the clients are a bit controversial. And you're actually right now representing someone who is controversial, who can be very liked by some and disliked, strongly disliked by others. And that, of course, is Pat King, Sir
Yes.
King, who is one of the main representatives of the Trucker Convoy. And I wanted to actually talk about this case, Natasha, because I know it's been tough. It's been in the public eye, just like the other two main ones,
Right.
Tamara Leach and Chris Barber. But Pat King is a little bit different. Like it seems like he's public enemy number one, kind of.
Yeah.
So just tell us about this case. First of all, why did you accept to represent Pat King, and how's it going? And how are you dealing with any backlash, if there is any?
Well, there's lots of backlash,
Yeah.
that's for sure. But I'm a strong woman, and I surround myself with strong people who I know have my back and who truly know me. So, like I said, I like the complicated cases. I like the ones that are going to be a bit of a dig in. And what I mean by that is voluminous work, maybe polarizing views. Mr. King is quite divisive.
Yeah.
People love him or they hate him. There does not appear to be any middle ground. And the reason why I agreed to take him on as a client, and it's not political. We can set our politics at the door. They don't have any place in a court of law. We're there to find out the truth of what happened. But he had been having a really difficult time with previous counsel, and he'd been kind of languishing in that bail system, in the bail review system, and there were things that had gone on that I was starting to feel bad for him as a defendant, not necessarily as a human being, right? As a defendant. we do this job, we do criminal defense work because we understand that for the system to work, for justice to come through, both sides need to be equally represented. You need to have a strong advocate for the Crown, you need to have a strong advocate for the defense, you need to have, where possible, comparable resources, and you need to have a fair and impartial jurist. In this case, we have a judge. And I knew that I could do something to assist Mr. King. It's not about whether he did or he didn't do. I mean, that's for the judge to decide. That's above my pay grade. But my job is to present a fair defense of perhaps why he did it, or the full circumstances of what was going on. But because it's such a national and at times international case, and because he's so disliked by a great number of people, it appears that people think, and we see this, Maya, from time to time in defense work, we get equated with our clients, right? We represent the accused, therefore we're as guilty as the accused,
Yeah.
or we're dirty, or we're crooked, or we're scummy, or we're
And
any
we're
of
always assumed to share their points of views, and we're
always
always assumed to also be defending their
what they
act.
did.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's not my job. My job is to put the perfect, the picture of what I think needs to be put forward. I'm not the judge of what happened or what didn't happen, nor are people in society the judge. But they feel it's appropriate to attack me both professionally and personally because of my representation of Mr. King. But for me doing, I guess, a good job and giving him a very fair and competent defense, people wouldn't feel like that they had the right to attack me personally for things that didn't happen, for things that might have happened in the past, or whatever it is, to bring up things from a decade ago as somehow as an attack on my character. And it makes me sad. Not, I'm a big girl, I can take it. It makes me sad for what people think the state of our justice system is.
Mhm.
And then why, male white lawyers in particular think that it's appropriate to attack, you know, uh, a female criminal defense lawyer in an area of law that they don't even practice and they don't know about because they have a voice. They're like, well, you're useless, or you're horrible, or you're unethical, or you're this, when it's simply not true. So it does happen. I think from the general public, I've got big shoulders. I can take it. You ignore the tweets, you ignore the Facebook messages or the voicemails or the hate mail or any of those things. But when it starts to come from people who practice and are in the field of law, that's where I'm concerned. It causes me grave concern that colleagues feel like that this is okay to do, and you can just attack. You can just attack without a basis or foundation, without knowing anything about the case, not being present in court, not seeing what's happening, not knowing what defenses are being proffered or what's happening. Just, I don't like your client, I don't like you, therefore you're something I stepped in, right? It makes me sad for the profession, because if one professional is attacking another professional like that, what kind of message is that sending to the general public? We're supposed to be the persons that uphold the sanctity of the criminal justice system, and to attack somebody because you don't like the person that they represent means I must be a bad lawyer, right? Because
Yeah.
I don't like that person. Who would take on that case?
Yeah.
You
And
know,
yeah, no, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, like, there are serious, complicated cases that people need representation on, and it doesn't mean that we're fair game. What's next? You're gonna go after my children? You're going to go after my partner, my ex-spouse? Like, where does that line get drawn in terms of it not professional and becoming just a personal attack because I dared to do my job? That's all I'm doing. I'm doing my job. And if people like me don't take on these cases, the system fails.
No, and that's the thing. I mean, like, first of all, thank you for taking on these cases, because I mean, as mentioned, Mr. King, for example, was having a hard time finding a lawyer that he could trust and he could work with. And I mean, we know he had lawyers before in the past and it didn't work out. And the thing is, the Constitution doesn't say that certain types of crimes or certain types of people are entitled to a defense. Everybody has the right to a defense, and regardless of what the allegations are. And people sometimes tend to forget that at this stage, they're just allegations. Like, it's
Right.
not, like Pat King is not yet proven guilty of anything. He's still going through the process, and he has the right, just like anyone else, to have a fair trial. And
He's
that's what he
presumed
wants.
innocent. He has
Yes,
the right. The Constitution doesn't apply to people that we like and not people that we dislike.
right.
You're presumed to be innocent. You have the right to reasonable bail. You have right to the least restrictive bail conditions possible. You have the right against unreasonable search and seizure. All of those things, right? That applies equally to all of us. And I think society misses that sometimes.
And I mean, just to give a little bit more information here or background, I mean, does Mr. King even have a criminal record? Or
I
is he?
I don't think I can get into that because that hasn't come out in court, Maya. I just
Okay,
need to be careful about what I know versus
yes.
on the public record at this point.
But I mean, he's not known for being a criminal or for
I think if you Googled him and put it this way, I don't think much would come up other than the convoy, the being involved in the
right,
convoy and his
right.
social media presence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so that's the thing. It's like people sometimes they get involved in very high profile situations just because it catches the media's attention. But I mean, people don't really know much about these individuals and what led them to act the way they did. And it's really unfair to be making judgments about them. Yeah.
And I think it's also unfair for us to make judgments based on, I mean, I know a lot more about not just Mr. King's case, but about the convoy, what was done, what wasn't done. I know a lot. And I know a lot by virtue of having disclosure and preparing this case. I think it's also unfair to people for people to base judgments aside from their own personal experiences, who
Mhm.
may have lived through the convoy for good or for bad, but just based on what we've seen in mainstream media. Because I will tell you, in my experience, some of the things that were reported, they're reported with a very clear bent, right? It's very much, we don't like this. This is horrible. This is the way it's going to go. This is what happened.
Yeah.
And when you look at the disclosure and you pick it apart, it was actually, and I was surprised. I went into it with a lot of prejudices. And I went into my representation of Mr. King, assuming X, Y, and Z were just true facts. And it turns out that they're not, because that was being reported in the media. I'll give you an example. One thing that was reported in the media repeatedly, and my partner had said this about the tow truck drivers. Oh, but they were being prevented from coming in. They were being bullied or they were being threatened. And that's what the tow trucks didn't come into downtown to remove the vehicles. Based on what I've read, and it's thousands and thousands of materials, and I suppose that there could be things out there that I don't know about, that
Mhm.
just didn't happen. That's just simply not true. There
Right.
were other reasons the trucks weren't moved or weren't moved, why they were moved, but I haven't seen any evidence of tow truck drivers being threatened. But that was something, my partner had said to me, Bob, but they did this thing. And I'm like, no, I actually don't think they did. I'm not seeing any evidence of that. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I don't know what the newspaper sources are. Maybe they have information that wasn't given to me, but that's just one example that kind of stands out. But maybe we think X and it's actually Y. And that's why we have trials, right?
Right.
Media is not in the, well, I mean, they're in the courtroom during the trial, but media is going to report what they report, and they do a good job. I'm not saying anyone, they must have had a source for it. I'm not suggesting that the media reported something knowing it was untrue, but we get a certain flavor for it. And in Ottawa in particular, people were obviously very frustrated about what was going on during the time that it was going on. And so it's very easy to attach yourself to a narrative of they're just horrible and we're all victims, right?
Yeah.
But we know in the job that we do, Maya, that the truth always lays somewhere in the middle, right? The
Right.
truth is somewhere in between. That's what our jobs is to
Yeah.
flush that. What did he do? Why did he do it? What were the circumstances? Was it allowed? Was it criminal? Was it not criminal? All of those things. And evidence will show that. So we need to be careful anytime, not just about Mr. King's case, but anytime we're reading about certain allegations or certain facts, particularly before they've been proven in court and tested by cross-examination, don't just assume that that's true. We can't just assume that that's true. So I get that people love him or hate him, but it's not, what I'll say is it's not all what it seems.
Right. But there's also an additional component in these specific trucker cases is that it's not just now a criminal case because of the allegations, but there's a political aspect to
Oh my
these
God, is there
cases.
ever?
And that's what makes them a little bit more
Yeah.
complicated. And this is why they're getting a lot of attention because of the politics involved. And obviously, politics, like whenever we're talking about politics, there are always extreme views on things. And so, how is that making things a bit more complicated in this case?
Well, I think it's important for people to realize, and hopefully people other than just our group watches this video to try to get a better understanding of what we do. Politics is really left at the door. it encompasses the noise behind us,
Hmm.
and it kind of cocoons us. It's always there. But just because, think about was it Ziegel was the gentleman. Remember that the hate crime case, he was writing books. We got taught it in law school that denied the Holocaust and did
Hmm.
all those things. And whether freedom of expression was in contrast or could be rebutted or used as a defense to the hate propaganda that he was spilling out. Well, he had a lawyer, right? He argued freedom of expression. He did the best that he could. He made his arguments and he defended his client. But we don't necessarily then think that his counsel was a Nazi sympathizer or was a Holocaust denier. That's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
We don't know what any individual's personal politics. I don't think it's appropriate for me to comment one way or another what mine are, and it shouldn't matter in what I do.
Yeah.
But people are going to assume that we are our clients, like I said at the beginning, right? And that we must share those ideologies. And that's simply not true. And whether I do or I don't, it's my business. Those are my political beliefs, and that's my thoughts and feelings, whether it be vaccine mandates or genocide or wars or who I vote for. That's my business. But I think because of the political spin to it,
Yeah.
it's made it a bit more difficult in the sense that everyone thinks they're entitled to an opinion.
Hmm.
Everybody thinks that they're entitled to support the convoy, detract from the convoy, like Pat King, hate Pat King, um, respect and appreciate and know what I'm doing for the reasons that I'm doing it, or loathe me and think that just because I'm a criminal defense lawyer who represents murderers and dangerous offenders and convoy organizers and all sorts of people that people love to hate, that therefore I'm open to attack. And I think because of that political element, it makes it more national, and it allows people to hide behind their keyboards a bit more and kind of lash out because they think, well, I don't think that, therefore I'm better than you, and I'm going to express my hate and my visceral reactions towards you.
And
So it's
so far,
more
because I
difficult.
mean, we know the trial is still ongoing. Like you guys have a break right now, it's
Yeah.
continuing. But so far, have there been any issues with that? Like, has any of that been a problem with the trial in
Up
terms of?
until up until this weekend, or Friday night, ever since I decided to represent Mr. King, I get little bits, I get emails, but I get equal emails of love. Thank you so much for helping
Yeah.
him. We're behind you, or I don't agree with him, but I appreciate the job that you're doing. And then I get the other side, right? You're a piece of scum. How dare you do this? You're damaging Canada. And now, in particular, we all know what I'm speaking about, the particular attack by another local
And
lawyer.
let's get a bit more
Yeah,
into that because this is very recent. It just happened
Friday night.
uh, on Friday over the weekend. And it was really disturbing to watch because unlike, members of the public who, who are writing just because they have their own personal views, I mean, this is from another lawyer, another
Yeah.
professional who's also supposed to be regulated by rules of professional conduct. And it was just a little bit disturbing to see that there were comments that were being made about you,
Mhm.
also in the context that you were representing Mr. King. So I'll let you talk a bit more about this, Natasha.
I want to be careful what I say because I am contemplating and consulting with people next week as to my next courses of legal action or complaint. So I want to be a little bit careful about what I indicate. But it was his comments were particularly hurtful and damaging, and there's a bit of history there. I represented a young man who was murdered by an individual. Again, one of those distasteful cases I take on, right?
Yeah.
Defending somebody charged with first-degree murder. And it was back in 2017 or 2018. And he lobbed a number of complaints about my conduct after the trial that were dismissed. I don't know if dismissed is the right word. He wrote a complaint under somebody else's name, but we knew it was written by him. I responded, and the Law Society responded to me, and then it was done. And then I don't think people know this, but once a case has been adjudicated, there was no hearing, there was no anything, it was just dealt with. And once the case is dealt with, you can then appeal. Like it's like an internal, like if you don't agree with the investigator's decision, you can appeal it. And they did. And I don't know the person who oversees it, but the person who reviewed it said, no, we stand behind the decision that was made by
In
the
the first
investigator. That's
instance.
the
Yeah.
end of it. But that took like 5 years.
Yeah.
I kind of had that hanging over my head for 5 years, knowing that I didn't do anything. There were, I won't comment too much about it, but I knew what the allegations were, and it was so silly. There was one day I was out, so I smoked at the time, and one of the jurors was a smoker as well, and he commented to me about the weather or something innocuous, right? And I extricated myself from it when I walked away, and then all of a sudden I was risking a mistrial, and I was conversing with a juror. Well, it's not, that's actually not at all what happened, but that was the kind of thing I was dealing with. And then saying I was inappropriately communicating with a witness, also not true. That she was charged with perjury, sure she was, but it had nothing to do with me. But I had this thing hanging over for me for 5 years. It's finally done, it's gone, yay. And then lo and behold, this person is involved as civil counsel for members of the city of Ottawa who've filed this class action lawsuit. And then the newspaper this weekend or on Friday released an article saying, my name, and then he decided it was okay to go on and slag me and saying I wasn't competent counsel, and I wasn't, and I did all of these nasty things, which he knows are not true. So it was just like, it was like a level and another level of attack. And I know why he dislikes me. And it goes back to that original case, not because of what I did, but I was the person who dared to represent the man who was, by the way, convicted of first-degree murder. And the
Yeah.
appeal and the appeal was unfounded. Like, he didn't, somebody else, I don't do appeal work, but somebody else appealed it, and the Court of Appeal said no, like that was the judge's decision, the jury's decision was adequate, and so he's serving a life sentence. So, but I did a good job. I asked those uncomfortable questions. I did what I'm supposed to do. Ask questions no matter how uncomfortable they make us, if they further the defense. And I gave this young man the best possible defense that I could, along with my co-counsel
Yeah.
at the time. And it just seems like that's never really gone away. But that's a personal issue, right? He personally dislikes
Yeah.
me. I don't think he's ever seen me. I mean, he saw me, I guess,
And we
do my.
didn't see attacks on co-counsel. It was just on you.
Mhm. It's funny, Maya, I'll disclose this too. There's another allegation came up, not against me, but against another. So my co-counsel was male, no allegations there.
Yeah.
Previous counsel for this accused was also male. No allegations came up there. Even though when I responded to that initial complaint, I'm like, by the way, I find this ridiculous that they're lying to you and suggesting I did this thing when they know full well I didn't do this thing. But how about the fact that this other lawyer, I'm not going to get into what he did, had a very inappropriate relationship with witness. I don't see anyone making complaints about him.
Yeah.
That's all over the text messages too, right? Like, why is it they were, and nothing, as far as I know, ever came of that. Also white male, right? So you wonder, it makes you wonder at what point, and I'm not suggesting that the Law Society's done anything wrong here. They haven't, but like, why wouldn't this lawyer picked up on that? I went, oh, that's interesting. Maybe I should look into that more and make a complaint against that person. Maybe they did, and I just don't know about it. But it seems petty, right? Because we know the other two complaints, I'll just talk about it now briefly because he lobbed them out against me on Twitter, was that one, I had inappropriate communications to the witness. There's no property in a witness.
Yeah.
She was on side with us and not the Crown. And the Law Society told me, look, Natasha, you need to be a bit more careful about that. You don't, if they're in line with you, then maybe you don't want to be having those conversations. I'm like, okay, fine, lesson learned. And then the other one, it was that I was giving her advice or was speaking to her and helping facilitate communications at jail. I have no idea what he's talking about. There were a couple times this young woman had reached out to me, and I'd mistaken her for another client who had a very similar name, and she was looking for counsel. And once I clued into who she was, I said, no, I can't help you. Here's some names of other lawyers, but I can't be the one to help you. And then if we have a client in custody, Maya, and they ask somebody to send a message, hi, Mr. X wants to speak to you, or wanted you to know why, and you read the message, you're like, okay, thank you very much. I don't know who's behind that number.
Yeah.
I don't know who's the person on the phone. I don't know who's connecting. How am I supposed to know any of that?
Yeah.
And the really upsetting part of it, and I'm just Cole's noting it, there was more to it, but just trying to defend myself a bit and establish why I did nothing wrong. It was known to this person that I did nothing wrong, because they had the benefit of having my full response, and then they had the benefit of the investigator's adjudication and decision and everything. So they know. So when you spit visceral like that out there simply because you don't like me and you don't like my client, it's extra damaging, right?
Well, and in this case, I mean, what is a little bit unfair, and I think he recognized that in one of his tweets, is that um, it's a very personal case to him. Like it's something that
Sure.
was very emotional, very personal. So obviously, when something is personal and very close, your judgment is not fully unbiased. Like you're gonna be like you want to blame someone, you want your anger and your frustration to, you want to find a target or something to put on like all the blame and all the
Yeah.
frustration. And so that's why it's a little bit unfair here. Well, what happened, and very unfortunate because it's not like it's something that was objective. I mean, it's very personal to him, and to make these opinions, and again, everybody's entitled to have their opinions, but you, the way you express them, you have to be very careful, especially when you're doing this as a professional and towards another person who is also a professional.
In the
So
same profession, who's guarded and we're monitored by the same rules of professional
right,
conduct, right?
yeah,
Would I like the person necessarily who, maybe I'm not a good example because I do this for a living, but if my son was murdered and a lawyer defended that person, I might not have a lot of time or respect for,
right,
just out of personal feelings. It doesn't mean that they're a bad lawyer, And then I would leave my comments to myself.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, like, I think the fact that there was that much dislike for you just shows maybe that you were actually doing a good job, because you were really pushing the case and trying to defend your client to the best of your ability.
I
And
was.
one point, though, that I want to mention and that I would like you to get more into, Natasha, is because this
Hmm.
is a very tough thing. I mean, it's difficult for all lawyers when we have these types of challenging cases and we're representing a very, like a polarizing person. But I just want to talk about it from the perspective of being a female lawyer doing this, because it seems like there's even more backlash when the lawyer is female. And actually, you mentioned that nobody made any comments about the other lawyers who were males. It seemed like it was just you. So tell us a bit more about the challenges. And you've had, like, this is not the like Pat King and this other case are not the only difficult cases that you've
No.
dealt with. But how do you deal with these cases as a female defense lawyer? And I think that that's very important for other female lawyers who are watching this, who feel a bit intimidated and who will turn down these cases because they are afraid of exactly this type of situation.
Yeah, it does send a chilling effect, right? When something like this
Yeah,
happens to me with somebody with 22 years of experience who's been doing high profile, big litigation for at least the last 15, 17
yeah,
years. And if I'm getting these attacks, then what does that say to other people? And you're right. I think it does scare them away. And I don't want them to be afraid. I don't want them to be scared away. I think the first thing that we need to do is we need to stand up for ourselves in a professional and forthright manner and say, you're lying. That is not true. You know it, and stop, right? And then we need to lean on the supports of our other colleagues, WiCCD members who've been tremendously supportive to me, as also male colleagues who are a lot allies, that they're allies of us and that know we go through these things.
yeah.
Rely upon those and rely upon your own inner strength,
And
right?
actually, speaking of that, have you had any support? I mean, we know WiCCD has been very supportive, and we really do support you, Natasha. But have you had any support from male colleagues
No,
recently? No.
no, 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 I haven't actually. I was just thinking about that. No, I've gotten a lot of emails, a lot of text messages, a lot of calls, a lot of tweets and direct messages, and I think they've all been from female colleagues. A lot of support from other reporters, like
Yeah.
male reporters, male supporters of me, male supporters of Pat, but within the profession, no. I don't, maybe they don't know about it. Like we didn't post anything about it on the CLA, for example, if they don't know. Um,
But many
you know,
are on social media. Like probably many of them have seen or
I didn't
noticed.
see it. And in fact, I was a little upset when I saw one former male colleague of mine who I know quite well, who commented on this individual's original tweet, didn't say anything about me, commented about the second portion of the tweet, which was about funding or something. And who knows me and knows me well, didn't obviously read the message, but didn't take that opportunity to defend me.
Yeah.
And this is somebody who's on social media a lot. This is somebody that I respect. This is somebody that knows me well, has worked very closely with me. And I would have thought that would have been a time to be like, hey, and by the way, you got this wrong about Natasha. She's doing what a lot of us can't do and what needs to be done, but he didn't either. And he's on social media all the time. So I don't know, but no, but we do have allies out there. We know that, right?
Yes.
We've got some allies, excuse me, who know what we do and why we do it. But I think that the more chilling effect, Maya, and I think this, taking aside, sorry, I've got to tickle what I do for what the cases that I take on. And I do really like them. I like those ones. I like them. I don't
Yeah.
know. It gets me going. I really do enjoy them, those
No, and
battles.
it's good because somebody has to do that. And, like this job is not an easy job. Like criminal defense is not, like roses, and it's not it is supposed to
Right.
be tough, and you're going to be representing people who are unpopular. But I mean, but you
What I
shouldn't also be getting attacked personally.
Yeah.
Like
And
that's an issue here.
I still think it's a, they think they can do it, so they do. Like there's still a lot of misogyny out there. There's still a
Yeah.
lot of unequal treatment, unequal pay, unequal recognition that exists out there. And that's why we need to support each other more and support the younger women coming up, because the more chilling effect that we're seeing, or that we could see, of things like that I went through and have gone through in my representation of Mr. King, is what we're seeing at large in the defense bar. We are losing
Yeah.
great, talented, gifted, incredibly excellent younger female defense lawyers to the Crown's office, to civil firms, to everything else. That's where the chilling effect comes from. It's
Yeah.
not, people don't defend me, and my male colleagues don't defend me, and we don't stand up there and say, this is what we're doing. That's going to scare other younger members
Right.
and may scare them away from the profession. We already have enough to deal with. Legal aid does not pay us. We don't get the same salary on a legal aid certificate that the court staff get, or the judges get, or the polices get, or the crowns get, or any of that. We are the most underpaid, underfunded person in that courtroom at all times. At all times.
Yeah.
That's already difficult. We've had, what do we do about, benefits, and what if you need time off to start a family, or all of those other things? Those all fall at our feet, and we are losing these women, and we're going to continue to, if things like this keep happening. Because I think there's still a part of this, and we always say it's a male dominated profession, but I don't think it is anymore. I think our numbers are pretty comparable, but it's still a male dominated mindset.
Yeah.
Right.
And
And what I
even
mean,
females sometimes think like males.
exactly. And they're
Yeah.
still thinking like, okay, well, man's not sitting around talking about how much maternity benefits can I take? How much time can I take away from work? And people still look at it as that kind of rough and more masculine veneer. So they feel like, I think, this is my personal opinion, that we're easier to attack, right? We're obviously weaker. We're not as strong-willed. We're not as smart. We're not as outspoken. We're just going to take it. So that's why I feel like we're getting more of those personal attacks towards us, as opposed to our male colleagues getting the same, right?
Yeah.
No, Lawrence Greenspan, he's an excellent, excellent lawyer, but he's a top echelon, most experienced criminal defense lawyer in Ottawa, and he's not getting crapped on for representing Ms. Leach, who's arguably a rung up in the organization that my
Yeah.
client
Yeah, I
is.
mean, like there are the three main guys in
Right.
this
But why
whole thing,
me?
and that are known, and they're each represented by lawyers. So, and all of the lawyers are excellent lawyers. Like I don't ever think, I never thought that Mr. King was not in good hands when he chose you to be a lawyer. Actually, when I read that he finally settled on you as his lawyer, I thought like that is a really good choice. Like I'm glad that he chose you because I know he will be in good hands. So,
And he
but it,
is. We're fighting everything that needs to be fought.
yeah.
We're making concessions where they need to be made. I'm trying to,
And there were no delays in this trial, right? Like
but
the other
apparently,
one has been going
but
on
I got the benefit of them going first too. You have to
for
remember, so some things that came out during that trial that
were
required
addressed. Yeah.
addressed, and ended up getting other disclosure
Yeah.
for it because of it, that I got. I'm like, hey, because I was following it. I'm like, okay, so what about those PLT logs or whatever? Can I get a copy of those, please?
Yeah.
So that I had everything that I needed to when I started. But it was almost like that was a bad thing, right? Oh, like somehow he mustn't be getting as good of a defense because it's gone more straightforward, was the kind of hint I was getting from the article. And I assume Mr. Fraser didn't mean to say that, but it was like a tale of two convoys, right? One was argument after argument and charter application. Well, I didn't have those issues in mind
Yeah.
because thankfully my colleagues had already dealt with those
Yeah.
issues. Those were settled issues.
And
I had the
that's
benefit
the
of their
benefit
hard
of a
work and their
precedent.
skill.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. And then and our trials are different. They're deemed to be overarching organizers, whereas the biggest witness against Pat is really Pat, right? His social media
Yeah.
presence. And no, I'm serious. So it's like it's a very different type of prosecution,
Yeah.
but it's also a very different type of defense. That doesn't mean that I'm doing a better job or they're doing a better job or anybody's doing a better job or a worse job. It just means they're different. And people don't understand that. So when
Well, and
you
he's not co-accused with the other two. Like the other two
just
are
mean
having their
discuss,
own
yeah,
trial, and he's not. So, I mean, clearly it's a little bit different here.
it is different. They could have tried him with those
Yeah.
two, but I don't think that there's like echelons, right? Of organizers, like
Yeah.
do down to participators. So, and he's somewhere, I think, probably in the middle, right? So I don't know. I wish I had a crystal ball and I could say exactly what or why these attacks are. The attacks that I received this from that individual were the most public and the most
Yeah.
derogatory and the most defamatory, I would say, of the ones that I have received personally or to my emails. I might get a hate email or delete it, whatever, not a big deal. And then the fact that it came from another professional, another lawyer, was just like, who's also got his own, he's got his own role in this case. And you notice I don't comment upon that. There's also an agenda, maybe not an agenda, but there's also a bent there too, right? Where he's
Yeah.
coming from. So it's like, do people read that? I don't know. Is it going to prevent me from getting work? Maybe. And it's unfair because it's not true.
Yeah.
I'm just
No.
doing my job and doing
And
it well.
as you should be. And I mean, I know that you're always doing an awesome job and you always fight really hard. And like it's really good to see someone like you who is trying always to be strong even in the face of adversity. And this is really a very delicate situation. And like I mean, I'm sure that you're going to be able to go through this, but I know it's not easy. But one thing you know for sure is that WiCCD has your support. We're here for you, Natasha, and we're all very upset when we saw this unfolding. I mean, it was just
I appreciate that. You guys have been amazing. Well, you're amazing in any world, you in particular, Maya, but the ladies of our group, like our collective, as I call it, like we are so much stronger together, right? We are
yeah,
so much stronger together. And society doesn't quite get why we do what we do or why we do it. If one more person asks me, like at a cocktail party, how can you defend guilty people? It's like, well, we don't know that they are.
yeah,
And everybody deserves a defense. And sometimes it's not necessarily even about guilt or innocence. It's about making sure that the facts the person are convicted of are accurate and appropriate. So you flush out the facts, you do your cross-examination, they thought the evidence was here, but it's actually here, or making sure they get the appropriate sentence, or making sure that they're convicted or not found guilty of offenses that they shouldn't be found guilty of,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
There's so much mud in between there. I don't mean mud in a bad way, but I mean it's murky. And it's about figuring out all of those things, because if we don't do that, our system falls apart. There's Jordan and delays and all of these issues. And I'm still shocked that our premier thinks that I'm just going to hire 190 new crowns and appoint a whole bunch of new judges and that's going to fix the problem. It's like, but what about us? Right? You still need to properly defend us.
or what
Or
about change the policies a bit? Like, don't always want to detain everyone on bail or, like try to get
mandatory minimums.
convictions and everything. So, I mean, there are a lot of issues. It's not just this imbalance between crowns and defense, but it's also like the policies are becoming harsher. Well, I mean, if you want to get rid of the backlog, maybe you should have different policies, different ways of dealing with these cases.
It's easy because nobody wants to be seen as soft on crime, right? Tough on crime is always, I'm tough on crime. That's an electable platform, right?
Yeah.
I'm tough on crime. So therefore, criminals should be in jail. They shouldn't get bail. Well, we all have the right to constitutional right to bail. Shouldn't do all of those things. Let's just fix it. Yay, I'm tough on crime, but that doesn't work. it just backlogs the system even more. I'm tough on crime too. Like
Yeah,
I don't like crime. I'm not like, yay, somebody robbed a bank. What a great thing. No, we don't want these things happening.
yeah.
But it's equally important to make sure that the innocent aren't guilty, factually or legally innocent or not
And to make
guilty.
sure we do have the right person, right? Because
Exactly.
sometimes we don't even have the right person who's being prosecuted. So that's also very important. Like wrongful convictions is also a big problem in this country that we
Absolutely.
don't really talk that much about.
Or if somebody doesn't do a good job, if they hire somebody who's maybe too junior, not equipped to do the trial that I'm doing right now, Pat King, he had like
Yeah,
a 2 year call or something, and they messed up a whole bunch of rules of evidence, or they
yeah,
just because of their inexperience, not because they didn't mean well. And that goes to the Court of Appeal. And the Court of Appeal says, yeah, that shouldn't have happened. Back and have another trial. Oh, and then something else happens, back and have another trial. Then how much money and resources and time is being wasted
yeah,
already within the scarce resources of our judicial system? Or isn't it better to have a first degree murder case where I ask the uncomfortable questions, put every alternative to the witnesses, do a good job, person gets convicted at first, and the Court of Appeal says, no, that's a righteous conviction. I'm not
yeah,
touching it. Right? Like, I just don't understand. People just don't understand.
yeah. But Natasha, I wanted to ask you because you've taken on many tough cases and unpopular clients. Have you ever had any regrets taking these cases?
No,
No.
no, I don't. No, no regrets. Uh, you know, I had one client who I came on as amicus for that ended up criminally harassing me. So maybe that would be one where I'd be like, maybe I should have done that, because then I became the victim of a criminal
Yeah,
harassment. But no, because if it's not done and it's not done properly, um, then the system falls apart. And I think what I do is important. And I think I need to be also an example to other young women coming up, saying that you can do this. This work is important, and please stay and please do it. We need
yeah.
you.
Yeah. No, I mean, your work is definitely important. And I know that you work really hard and you fight till the end for your clients. And honestly, Mr. King is lucky that he has you as a lawyer. And I know that you're doing your best for him, just like you do your best for all your clients. And again, WiCCD is here to support you, Natasha. We're very happy that you're a member of WiCCD. And I mean, I don't know if you have one final message that you would like to give to our viewers, especially I would say to female defense lawyers who are watching and who would like to learn from you and how to have a practice where they can take on these tough and challenging cases. What piece of advice would you like to give them?
Stick with it and reach out. Reach out to me, reach out to Maya, reach out to Anita, reach out to Cassandra, reach out to anybody locally, not locally, and to get that experience that you need. You're not going to get a case like first degree murder or a Pat King or anything right out of the gate, but watch them.
Yeah.
Come and see what we do. Take us for a coffee. We'll buy you the coffee, but sit with us, pick our brains, and stick around and watch and absorb and take in as much as you can take in. And find good people and surround yourself with those good people, those who bring you up and don't try to take you down just because you had the nerve to um, take certain types of cases, don't take certain types of cases, have a family, don't have a family, get married, don't get married, because everybody's going to have an opinion on how you live your life and how you do your practice. And you just need to cut out the white noise and
Yeah.
focus on those of us who are here to honestly build you up.
Yeah. And if you're a female lawyer or female identifying, join WiCCD because we do have a
Yes,
very supportive community.
it's the
And
best. I
yeah,
don't know what we did without it.
I know, like imagine practicing before WiCCD. Like now it's so much better that we have this group and we all support each other. And we're really very happy to have you as our member. And also, I mean, I just have to mention that not only are you a member, but you did also participate a lot by like in the CPDs and events. We recently had this panel on mat leave where you were there and you were sharing your experience. So thank you so much, Natasha, for
Always.
everything that you do, whether it's in court or outside of court. You are really a great mentor and a fabulous lawyer. And I want to thank you for taking the time today. I know you're very busy and I know you had a tough weekend, but thank you for taking the time. And we will be following what you're doing, and maybe we'll have a part two where we talk more about what happens in the King case. And it's King versus King, like
I
this
know.
case.
I saw it the other day. I'm like,
King
that's
versus,
kind of
so
funny.
nice.
King versus King. Yeah. So where we are, just for anyone who hasn't been following it, just to give you a bit of an update. So we did 9 days. Crown's case is in. So
Okay.
we've got 5, maybe up to 8 more days in July set. 5 for sure, 15th to 19th. The other days are a bit of a moving target. It's if another case of mine collapses, then maybe we can squeeze in a bit more time. So it's for the defense case, because of course an accused does not have to provide a defense,
Yeah.
but it is our right if we choose to. And I'm, as I did throughout my cross examinations of the other witnesses, I'm trying to show a different side to Mr. King and a different narrative to what actually happened. So it'll be an
Yes.
opportunity for me to do a bit more of that through my witnesses.
So we will be following that, and then maybe we can have you back to talk more about this case and how it
I'd love
unfolds.
to. I would love
Thank
to.
you. Thank you so much, Natasha.
You're welcome, Maya. Thanks for asking me.